Welcome to the Fantasy NASCAR podcast brought to you by RaceForThePrize.com. Let's do a quick video that breaks down the Texas practice. You're looking at the lap-by-lap data that you can get at RaceForThePrize.com for access. Venmo, PayPal, Cash App the money to me, the link's below, and then I'll share the sheets with you. I greatly appreciate that. I greatly appreciate you being here. Go ahead and hit that like button, that subscribe button. So quickly we'll look at the laps, and then later this morning, I'll do more of a picks video. So here is my analysis. Now, we can look at this, and sometimes you got these X'd out laps, and you can see that's just NASCAR speed. We can see these red dots usually. That's typically the drivers bringing their cars in. But one of the simpler ways is just to smash all the laps together and rank the laps from best to worst. I know it's not the most scientific way of doing it because people run short runs, long runs, heat cycles, etc. But it's just one way to look at the data. And now you can see in front of you the big takeaway, and that's that most of these laps are the same. I know technically that Tyler Reddick and Ty Gibbs were the fastest, but again, remember we had different runs, different cycles, different tracks, so there's going to have to be a margin of error here that you're going to have to assume on your own and figure it out. But this is what Denny Hamlin bemoaned on his podcast, that NASCAR wants parity, NASCAR got parity. And when you look at these lap times at Texas, that's pretty much it. And when drivers say they can't pass, that's pretty much it. And there it is, in clear form. And so you step back and you realize we got cars 1 through 15, and maybe, again, this isn't technically his 18th lap, close enough to it. And we have a 1 mile per hour difference. Sure, it's a 1 mile per hour difference, but again, heat cycles, being in traffic, all the things that you have to factor in, is it really that much of a difference? Is there that much? So what's going to determine the difference in these drivers? Obviously, clean air, starting position, and then pit road, pit road, pit road. So we're going to want to look at pit road rankings. I will go over that in the next video. It absolutely will be a deciding factor. Also, a deciding factor is not going to be who is fast in practice. It's going to be who goes 2-tire, no tire, 4-tire. And if I'm a betting man, and if I'm one of these drivers, and I realize that we are all the same, and if we are all the same, I'm not going to be able to pass you on the track. The only way to get an advantage is to play games on pit road if I truly want to win. Some are going to make it work. Some are going to make it, and it's not going to work out for them. And you're just going to have to make a decision on who you think is going to be those drivers who really take a chance. Another way that you can look at this data, and I would encourage you to do so if you have access at racefortheprize.com, is we look at the raw data, and we can look and see kind of the length of runs. Timing the runs, not so much this week. In other weeks, you'd want to look, all right, were you on the track when it was a little bit faster than other times? And you could maybe assume a little bit of skew for people who went out really early, but that's more of what we've seen in the short track package at specific tracks that rubber up a lot, so we don't really worry so much. But one of the things that we do want to see is, are you letting them fast laps, which Austin Hill doesn't do, and did you have to come back in? Did you have to come back in? Were you able to go out there and sustain a pretty long run? Because again, you go back to what Jimmy Johnson said it again this week, you really can't change your car. There's not enough time in practice to make adjustments. You got what you got. And how do we know if you got what you got? If you show up and you're able to make some significantly long runs, then that means the simulation pretty much lined up with what you've got on track, and you're in a very good spot. If you keep coming back in, not good. It means you didn't get the setup right, and we also can assume that with a short practice, you really aren't going to be able to make that much of a change. And even if you are able to make some changes, you're behind the 8 ball, and you're not necessarily a driver that we like. Now, again, to articulate that, here's your top 15, here's your guys that all have a chance, and then you can clearly see, like, yeah, there's a clear difference here between the guys that don't really have a chance. And then you've got, obviously, some speed down here with Cindric and Busch. Cindric ran really early in a short run. Busch Brad Keselowski did a bunch of small runs, which we can see in a second. That'll help you understand, like, oh, well, this kind of looks good. But then when we look at Brad Keselowski's strategy, not the best, which went along with Chris Buescher's. And Jimmy Johnson, he didn't put very many laps. But you can clearly see, all right, there is these drivers do have much more significant fall off they are in the middle pack or the backpack of the racing. Now, going back to the raw laps, we can see it a little bit more clear. Again, racefortheprice.com, if you go through this data, you can see kind of the segments of the run. Austin Hill's not really a driver we want to worry about. We're not really going to worry about Jimmy Johnson because of his situation. One of the things we'll see with Bowman that we find a little bit encouraging is these are not bad laps. Runs a decent section here, going 10 laps out, comes back out, comes back in, goes back out. Not really absolutely what we would want to have seen. We want to see a little bit longer run. We would have liked to have seen this second run, although his speeds probably would have been much worse on the older tires in the heat cycle. We would like to have for him to sustain a long run and not come back in here taking a quick break, quick breather. So 2 stops in, probably not quite on top of it. You got Austin Cindric stopping back in, runs back out, doesn't work it out. That's not a good sign. Goes down on a really clean track, pretty fast firing off, makes some quick adjustments. I mean, I wouldn't bury him, but I would have liked to have seen a lot more laps and a longer run. Austin Dillon, just a couple laps. Comes back in, just a couple laps. That tells me the new crew chief, they don't know what they're doing. And you can see that overall. Brad Keselowski, real short run, really fast. Had a little bit of, I think, a tight issue. Had to bring it back in. Was a little bit worried. Just these short runs. He's already talked a lot about we're not getting enough out of practice. We're trying to change around our practice strategy. It does not look like they worked out this week. But Wallace, this is an example of an encouraging run. He's able to go out and run 17, 18 laps really well. At the end of the run, 14, he's at 29.4. So not even about half a second fall off. Not bad. That is encouraging. The car is doing what they wanted it to do. Goes back out. Obviously, there's going to be much more fall off on these older heat cycle tires. But we like that he went out and pretty long run together. Hocever, not very long there. Goes back out. Again, not very long and struggling. Not laying down probably the speed that you'd want to see. Briscoe, you'd like for him to win a little bit longer. There he is, really slowing down. We'll point out a couple more interesting things here in a second. Here's one of them. Chase Elliott, really hot, really good during this run. 9th lap in, probably has to slow down for traffic or whatever. Guess what that's going to do to his 10-lap average? Let's go over and look over at the sheet and see, oh, it's Chase Elliott on his 10-lap average. Pop over. There it is, 21st. Was Chase Elliott the 21st in a 10-lap average? No, but because one of the 10 laps was really slow, he's going to show up really poorly on that chart. That's why this integer ranking of ranking people from 1 to 40 in terms of their 5-lap, in terms of their 10-lap and 15-lap, can be very misleading. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you that this week, as you break down practice and try to decide who's fast, there are plenty of those drivers. So again, that 1 lap because of traffic or whatever is going to ruin what was a really pretty solid run. And we're going to see that with a couple other drivers. And even when we look at him on the long run, that's going to hurt some of his data from a longer run perspective. I wonder if he still shows up halfway decent. So that's going to hurt his 10 run, and that's going to hurt his 15 run, and that's going to hurt his 20 run. Whereas we know if we look and we really break down that run, it's really not bad. Here he is on lap 20 run 1 running a 29.3. Running a 29.3. We're still out there. 26 laps in, 29.4. The guy went out, ran a really, really long run. It's not going to show up well on the averages chart. You may get a little ownership. It looks pretty freaking fast to me. Busher goes in, and if you look closely, he's out there for 3 laps. Out there for 3 laps. That car does not look good. And then when he finally gets out there and is able to run some laps in a row, there's already heat cycles. The car is slow. That is not good. Chris Bell is another perfect example of a guy who ain't going to show up well on your chart. Maybe that lowers ownership. These are great laps here. 2 through 11. All right, I'm putting together a good 10-lap run. And it's almost like he does this intentionally. So then when we get to 10 laps, sorry, I'm just going to throw down some slow ones real quick. And so what do you think is going to happen to his 10-lap average? Just because of these, maybe there's traffic, maybe there's something going on, you name it, we'll flip over here. And so guess what? Christopher Bell, great 9 laps. But when we look at his 10-lap average, he's only the 11th. His 15-lap average, because of those, 19th, 20th. His speed was fine when we go back over here into these raw laps. And we'll see that here he is running laps very comparable, if not better, than Chase Elliott, and he's running deep in a run. So that's one of the problems with ranking drivers from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, also using averages because of specific laps like that. So Christopher Bell looks great. Chase Elliott looks great. Those red boxes over on the main sheet are misleading because of aberrant laps. We flip through. LaJoy, obviously, he has something happens right there on our timing situation. And then, though, he falls off pretty quickly. It is nice, though, that he went out and put together a decent little run, but not a lot of speed there. Daniel Hemrick, real quickly, it is clear to me again that Justin Haley left Colleague, which scratched all of our heads. But the reason why was because he knew this team was going basically to a pay-to-play system, that they weren't going to have competitive rides. And you say, well, why is Daniel Hemrick in this ride? Because Daniel Hemrick has brought over his South Point sponsors. Hemrick brought sponsorship in, and so that's the way that they went. It seems pretty clear, and Hemrick looks terrible. Haley looks actually somewhat suitable at Rickware. So Hemrick, quick skip over. Suarez, look at that. That's very exciting. We also see really good times out of his teammate at Trackhouse. Comes out, lays down a long run, maintained speed. I like Suarez. Second run, not as great, but that's understandable. He already had plenty of laps on his tires. Just trying to see what else they can get out of it. Very happy with that first run. Denny Hamlin goes out, and wouldn't you know it, smack dab right in the middle of his run. He's got this slow lap for whatever issue. He bounces right back, but you know that's going to kill his 10-lap average. This probably could have been a good run, but we go over here and we find out that sure enough, oh, well, he's just 19th on the long run. His 10-lap average is 29.2. And again, it's because he had this one aberrant lap. Does he look fine? Yes. He goes out, runs what? And then he's got another one here, but then he bounces back the next lap. So overall, 15 laps, he's running a 29.3 at the end of it. The car's right there. Again, it goes back to the original point that these cars are all pretty much the same. It's going to come down to pit road. It is not going to be very easy to pass a car that is about the same as you. Maybe we get a second groove that slightly opens up late in the race, but maybe we don't. Let's see if we can go super fast as we wrap up. Find some drivers that you might be interested in. Logano, that's a pretty solid run. Would like for him to stay out a little bit longer, but even when he comes back out the second time, still has some pretty good speed. And the car still holds on pretty well. I mean, this is, his 26th, 25th lap on the tire, so that's pretty deep, but 23 laps on a tire, 29.4, that's pretty good. Him and Blaney looked pretty decent, which kind of surprising, not surprising, but there was questions coming out of Las Vegas. We've seen them excel in the short track package. To see them back rolling in intermediate track package, we wasn't sure we were going to see that yet. Nemechek slow out of the gates, finds some speed there. Not completely terrible. Comes back out. Really isn't that bad for the laps and the heat cycle. Maybe something there for John Hunter Nemechek this week. Barry, Comes out. It's a pretty good run. That's going to be ruined here because of this aberrant lap, but that is pretty solid. Let's see how long this thing goes. But that is some significant fall off right here in lap 14. And he does not get it back. He brings it back in, sends it back out there, only gets a couple more laps. That is a bit troublesome. Now, that could be something going on the track. That could be dirty air because he does come back out. But I would have liked to have seen this run go a little bit longer. And, I don't think this is just random dirty air because he does bring the car in for, 10 minutes before he goes right back out. So this tells me that something wasn't really great with the car. Went out, got a couple more laps in. I think there is some concern there with that. Haley fires out there pretty good. Brings it in. Nope, too many stops for me. We don't need to talk about Kaz Gralla. Kyle Busch, we don't need to talk about because of his issue. All right, Larson, you'd love to see it. Goes out there, fires off hot, coming in, and he gets his 15 laps in, and then he's done. A little bit of fall off here in the last 2 laps, but he knows this is his last 2 laps. He's probably not really pushing it. He's checked all his boxes. They come in and they probably make just a real quick tire pressure change just to get the thing ready for qualifying. He lays down 1 lap, calls it a session. Obviously, it did exactly what he wanted. He's very happy, and we saw that in qualifying. That's exactly what we're looking at when we're looking at this data. Here you go, 3rd lap in. You got an aberrant lap by Truex. It's going to kill his averages. Otherwise, he would be, excellent on your charts. It comes out, runs 17 laps. He is 29.3 late in the run. Everything is awesome. Oh, but he's only 18th on the 10-lap average just because his 3rd lap was an aberrant poor lap. That's because when he was running his 5 fastest laps, which were at the front of his run, he had that 1 off lap. So it shows up really bad on the scoreboard. And, most people are going to be looking at this data, lap averages. And the lap averages are absolutely skewed. So you're welcome for joining me here at racefortheprize.com. Even if you don't want to buy the whole sheet, you can always Venmo, PayPal, or Cash App some money over to me to say, hey, thanks for giving me this info, because I saw the average laps from some other guy, and I was off Truex, or I was off Bell, I was off Elliott. But now that you showed me this data, which you can get at racefortheprize.com every week and break through on your own, because I'm not always going to break it down like this. At the very least, like, subscribe, share, recruit people to the team. We love having you being a part of this community, this moving community. Got me on the treadmill. Got other people doing these, listening on the treadmill. Got me with the rucking vest on, and a lot of you have rucking vests on. We're all doing it, though, on the sauna suit. Come on. We're having fun. We're doing this, and every time you help support me, it pays for the 3 Ds, diapers, daycare, and Mickey D's. So you help me and my family, and I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart. And so I try to help you out as much as I can with this specific data. I hope this video works for you and gives you some more knowledge. Let's go real quick. Wrap her up. See McDowell coming in, taking a break. He did, though, lay down 13 pretty good laps to start out. I think I said recently that they were RFK. They are not RFK. RFK allied. RFK Alliance did exist before with Front Row, but they now, as they become more of a preferred Ford option, as Ford has said, they're Penske aligned. And we have seen Penske take some steps forward, strides forward, and McDowell, pretty good run here. We don't have super high expectations, but to go out and run 13 laps, 29.4 at the end of it, bring it in, take it out. I know that for other drivers, that's not necessarily what we want to see. I don't think that he is in the top pack of the field, but he absolutely is going to contend for that top 20, top 15 finish. I think that's enough speed there. Gragson firing off. That's a pretty good run from Noah Gragson. Comes out, stays out, 17 laps. I think you like what you see. Now he goes back out, tire cycle, unable to replicate what he did before. Tires are pretty worn out. But again, this is not necessarily a car I expect to be top 10. Could be a top 15. Does find a little bit of speed here. But overall, that's not a bad session for Noah Gragson. Ricky Stenhouse coming out. That's really not bad for Ricky Stenhouse either. He goes out 13 laps. I think the fall-off's getting ready to come in right there. But again, that's what we're going to expect from a guy who's been back in the 20s all year. That's, obviously big time fall off here, but I think he's going to be competitive. He could hang on to the lead lap. It looks like a pretty safe, solid session, though, for him. Ross Chastain, would have loved to see him run a little bit longer like his teammate Suarez. Super fast, brings it in, because there really wasn't much fall off right there. Let's see how this next run goes. That's pretty solid. There's a little bit of a fall off here. We've got this average lap, so his averages may not necessarily click off as well, because let's see, he will probably get a pretty good 10 lap in, a pretty good 5 lap in. The 15 is not going to show up because he didn't do a 15. It's not bad. Here, let's see Blaney. And Blaney will likely probably get a good 10 lapper in. He's got this lap that's going to definitely skew his top 15 a little bit. Let's see how bad that top 15 gets skewed for Blaney. Not too much, still an 8th. Still maintaining speed, 18 laps in, pretty good. Comes back out, run it again. It's pretty decent, still has a little bit of speed left. So you like that. Priest, that looks like some pretty quick fall off. Bring it in, goes back out, no speed. It's about right. Not really handling very well this year. That's not a bad little run there for Todd Gilliland. Not as good as his teammate, but for a driver in the backpack. And then he sends it back out. Obviously a lot better than what we just saw from Priest. Goes out, runs 13 laps, pretty competitive. And at least the second time out there, it's got some decent speed. Not really concerned with Ty Dillon. Ty Gibbs is your guy. And even with this really bad lap in here, I think his 15 lap average is still firing off really well. So his 10 lap is going to be hurt because, his 10 fastest laps are out of the gate. He's got that average lap in there. That's also going to hurt his 15, which means he's much faster than that. Because he's got that 30.99 right there. This is a fast car, along with Tyler Reddick, who we'll talk about in a second. Look at that. The car did exactly what they wanted it to do. Went out, ran 30 laps. All right, let's go home, boys. Tyler Reddick. See, firing off. This one's going to kill his 15 lap probably a little bit right there. But again, this guy goes out there, runs 23 laps. Car does exactly what he wants it to do. We'll go back out and run a little bit longer. And he's still able to go out and throw together a pretty good time. That's going to do, well, we'll do Byron. All right, one more. William Byron goes out. Pretty similar strategy to Kyle Larson. Everything looks good. We'll go back out. We'll run a little bit more laps. And they're pretty good. And then actually, Zane Smith kind of surprised me in practice with his speed. We've been burying Zane Smith recently. Trackhouse just pretty much loaned him out to Spire. Spire had a car to fill. They're just kind of out there with a team to have a team. And so Zane Smith, despite the Spire situation, despite his past success, despite his Trackhouse connection, was really the worst car in the field to start the season. He's got a decent ride this week. Pretty solid here. Nice little run. Look at that. He went out and ran 22 laps. He's running a 29.2 at the end. I guess I woke up and said, all right, give Smith something to work with. And we flip over here to where I have the laps. Did you notice who was at the top? There's Zane Smith. We're looking deep into a run. Competitive laps. Exciting stuff. That'll do it for our practice breakdown. RaceForThePrize.com. Leave a like. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Share, recruit people to this channel. Join the movement. I'll do a picks video later this morning and see who is in our player pool, who's not in our player pool. Look at some pit stop data. Blessed to have you guys here. I do love you guys. Trip the light fantastic.